Hey there, Groofters, Groove Stars. Ridgely here with another Lessons from the CEO. Delighted to be joined by a fellow speaker, entrepreneur, event producer, founder of Brainworks and the laptop lifestyle. Now that I love that. Everybody wants that laptop lifestyle. My friend Bob Dietrich. Bob, thanks so much for taking some time today to be with us. Really appreciate it and want to
Mm.
learn what we can learn from you.
I am so excited to be here, and you can tell because of my olive skin that I am living the laptop lifestyle. However, if I took my shirt off, it would reveal that I'm not. But we'll talk about that in a lit. I'm excited to talk today because, there are so many keys to success. Like if you knew these keys and you implemented these keys, you would take your business to the next level. And I wish the conversation we're going to have today, I wish somebody had with me 20 years ago. If I did, I'd be in a whole different place. So let's get going.
You know what? And I love that too, because I feel the same way. It would have been great if, and since that's not happened, it did not happen, at least let's make that possible for others. So take us back a little bit. Were you always an entrepreneur or did you start on a different route and then move into it? How'd that work for you?
Well, my mom was an entrepreneur and I didn't know it at the time, right? My mom was a hairdresser and she had her own, she did a booth rental and she rented her own booth, but I didn't realize that she had her own business and she had to generate her own leads and really on a, it was kind of a smaller scale than a lot of us are doing, but that was in essence was what it was. And she didn't make much money at what she did. And when she did want to take us on vacation, what she would do, we live in San Diego, what she would do is she'd arrange these junket trips, bus trips to Las Vegas, 5 hour bus ride to Vegas. She'd get all her old lady client friends, right? Because she do the old lady's hair, right? And if you're an old lady out there, sorry about that. I'm an old man at this point, so whatever, we're all even. Anyway, and so she'd arrange these bus trips and all these people would pay to go on these bus trips. She would get money for bringing them to the casino. We'd get a free room, we'd get gambling money, and we'd have basically a vacation. That was how she created vacations for us as a kid. And so when I look back, it's like I learned so much from these things my mom did that I didn't realize I was learning. And so I've kind of have this entrepreneurial spirit, event creation spirit that she had, only on a much different scale with technology and my background. But I did not start as an entrepreneur because when I was 19 years old, I got my first job at a bank and I thought, you know what? Where's the money? Well, the money's at the bank. I want to work at the bank. It's like little did I know they don't pay they don't pay you that money. But I learned that the hard way. But I spent my first 16 years of business as an accountant. By the way, amazing experience. But it was 16 years, and there was a lot of it's a lot of dealing with getting a job and the employee mindset. And I was studying Robert Kiyosaki at the time. And how do I break this mindset that I've been creating for myself for the last 16 years? How do I break that and have the entrepreneur mindset of a business owner? And so as I started moving out of accounting into sales, and ultimately it was first sales with a salary. Then it became sales commission only, and then I became a contractor, and then I was off to the races with entrepreneurship. It's like I had slowly graduated from being a full employee, totally dependent on the employee nipple, right? And then slowly weaning myself off commission and some base salary, and then all commission, and then on my own. Right, I didn't even need the company anymore. I generated my own company, and then I started there with a energy conservation company. So I had an energy conservation company for about 15 years. And then I moved online. And at that time, with the energy conservation company, I was doing public speaking and I was kind of dabbling in the internet marketing space, but I didn't really do much until later. And we'll talk about that piece in a bit. But that's kind of where I got started and how that kind of whole thing evolved.
You know, what's interesting is that I have the enormous privilege of being able to mentor young business owners.
Mm.
And the first thing that I try to share with them is there's one thing that will get you if you don't begin to learn this, and that's understanding your numbers. You've got to know your numbers. And Leaving aside the fact that of all of the professions in the world, accountants create the most millionaires, by the way, interesting stat. Um, at least starting out in your entrepreneurial career, one thing that you understood probably far better than most early entrepreneurs is the importance of the numbers. How's
Yeah.
that played out for you?
Oh, it's been a game changer. I mean, I can go in and I can focus on where the numbers are because I understand the income statement. I understand the balance sheet. I understand the flow of the money. I understand statement of cash flows. I understand the taxes. And so coming into a business with that background, it's like saying, listen, I understand the nervous system and how your blood flow works and how your respiratory system works. And now let's go find your disease, right? And that's where I was. And
Mhm.
so yeah, having that background was a huge success. But I will say that as I go, even now, go deeper into entrepreneurship, the more I learn to delegate, the better off I am. And so I'm thinking, invaluable having this information, but I could have delegated it, but still having it is super valuable. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And if you were to think about the with your own experience as an entrepreneur and also somebody who understands the numbers, what do you think are the top couple of characteristics of a successful entrepreneur?
Okay. Well, being self-driven, right? Being motivated, being willing to get yourself off the couch and move forward. And knowing when you can't, because knowing when you can't means that there's something that needs to fill the gap. What is that? Sometimes it's like, I'm not going to make my rent. I got to get up and go to work, right? If you have a job. But if you don't have a job, you have your own business, what's going to get you off your butt to make sure that you do? In other words, what's holding you accountable? And I think one of the keys to my success is that I've always had a partner. I've always had a business partner that I was accountable to. And I knew if I didn't get something done, I wasn't just affecting him, but I was affecting myself. And also at the time I was had just gotten divorced. I was paying child support, and I didn't want to be one of those people that didn't make their child support. So I had those two things going on, right? And notice that's even above rent for me. So that's where my ethics were, right? I want to make sure my kids are taken care of, and I'll figure myself out later. So that is, I think partnerships really put a lot of things in place if you get the right partnership. And I'm not saying somebody like you, I'm saying something the exact opposite. In other words, when I went into a partnership with a gentleman named Cal Getz, awesome, great guy and great friend still to this day. And he was awesome at sales and marketing. And I had an accounting background, and I was starting to get involved in sales. I knew I wasn't there yet, but when I joined forces with him and went into this energy conservation business, we were able to generate everything we needed because I was technical. I can run all the computer stuff, and I can do the invoices and the proposals and all that stuff. And I knew how to handle the taxes and whatever. And he knew how to approach the clients and what to say on the invoices and how to make them colorful. And we crushed it in our business. And as a result of having somebody who filled the gaps where I wasn't strong, I could be strong in my lane, he could be strong in his, and together we could really push the ball forward. And I think that is a real key to success.
I could not agree more. It was interesting. I was coaching a young man who's just getting started with his first business. He said, "What do you think about getting a partner?" And my comment was, "I think partners are great as long as they're not like you. You don't need two of you who have the same skill sets to do the same thing. You need somebody who's complementary to what you do. They do other stuff that you don't do. You do stuff that they don't do. And therefore, together, this makes a lot more sense." For sure. I'm with you on that one. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
along,
if I got somebody like me, I'd be sitting on the beach drinking margaritas, right? And we'd both be we'd be double down on that. And so we want somebody who's going to pull us off the beach, put us back in front of our computer and get some work done. And we use the weekends to do that stuff, right? And so that's, yeah, totally.
so now you've been through multiple different businesses. Tell us about one setback, could be colossal or not, that you've gone through. We all have. And what did you take away from it?
Yeah, so here's a big setback. When other people are in charge of your future, you're bound for a breakdown, right? You're bound for a breakdown. And so we were working energy conservation programs through San Diego Gas and Electric at the time, right? And San Diego Gas and Electric uh, we had made $3 million in 6 months, and San Diego Gas and Electric through their rebate program, they were not very happy about that, and they started looking for ways to shut us down. And after selling 135 light fixtures, lighting light bulbs or whatever we were doing at the time, lighting equipment, um, 135 pieces, 135,000 pieces in 6 months, they came back and said we had committed fraud by saying that we had installed 90 light bulbs in a place where we didn't install them. Well, what had happened was their customer requested that we take the 90 light bulbs and leave them with them, and they promised us that they would install them. And then we said, okay, great, we'll bill it in 2 weeks. And we went from there. Well, normally we would check on that, but Cal's wife had a brain tumor. They went emergency brain surgery, and I was holding down the fort, and we were just trying to move things forward, as you know, and you can imagine that volume of business in that amount of time. A few things fell through the cracks, and the small things did. Well, they nailed us for that and shut us down and kicked us out of the program. And so instantly we're out. And so the moral to the story is that when somebody else has control of your future, you're headed for a breakdown. And so you want to be in a position, if you can, to either have a solid relationship there or have nobody in charge of your business. Now, in internet marketing or your own business, even the government can be one of those people, right? The FTC can be one of those people. So there are things you still need to watch, but knowing who they are and what the possible problems can be, you can approach them, ask them, hey, are these problems, or find an attorney or whatever, and make sure those breakdowns don't happen. And overall, as a universal lesson is try and forecast your breakdowns. And if you can forecast your breakdowns and prevent them, you're in great shape. So
Yeah, for sure. And even sometimes that not having somebody be in charge of the future can even be not having one big client and they're the only client you have. I've been
yeah,
through that before in the past, where one client would represent a ton, 80% of your business. You're like, okay, this is not good, because if something were to happen to that relationship, no matter how hard you try to take care of it, and the CEO changes or whatever, and all of a
yeah,
sudden, it's like, okay, yeah, how's that working out? Now, you
I've
mentioned
seen
Robert.
that.
Yeah.
I've seen that over and over again.
So you mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, and
Yeah.
I guess on some level he was some form of a mentor for you. How has mentorship played into your development and success?
It's been a huge part. I've had mentors who I didn't know were mentors, right? In other words, I didn't ever call them a mentor or whatever, but they were a boss. Maybe they owned the business and they hired me, or whatever. Even my business partner was a mentor. And ultimately, you could have multiple, mentors. Mentors can just be people that you're learning from, like Robert Kiyosaki. Never met the guy, but I was involved in his circles. I actually did do certified cash flow training, cash flow being his game that he created. And so, but I was involved in his circle, but I never met him, but he was still a mentor, right? And so we're learning from people, and really who are mentors are just our teachers, the people that we're teaching from. A real mentor though is like let's say I live in the same town as Ridgely is, and we're meeting up every week for coffee, and he's really kind of saying, okay, where are we at, and helping me through, almost coaching, right? And then that becomes the fine line between coaching and mentorship, right? And so yeah, I think we're always in some kind of mentorship state, and if we're not, we should be. I will tell you that I remember one time, remember when Borders used to exist. Borders was a bookstore, right? Like Barnes and Noble. And I was walking by and I thought, you know what? I haven't been involved in personal development in a couple months. I need to do something to kind of shift that, because my ethic is I always want to be involved in personal development. Another key to success, I think. And so I walked into Borders. I found a book I'd never heard of before. It's called The 4 Hour Work Week. Everybody knows about that now, right?
Mhm.
And I picked it up. I go, this sounds like what I want, right? 4 Hour Work Week, and the power of a title, right there. And so I picked it up. 4 Hour Work Week is like, this is amazing. I want this book. I got this one and some other maybe spiritual book. I can't remember what it was, but that made a big impression on me, because that was, it got me back into personal development. But now to this day, it's like one of these books that I look back on and say, yeah, this is one of my mentors. So
You're still a reader today?
not necessarily. I try and live it more than read it because it's like the philosophy is using all these things out there to create multiple streams of income, multiple, access points, using our credit card as points to travel and live our, the type of lifestyle we want and all these other things. So I try and live it more than I follow it, try and invent it because there's so many, it's like an infinite number of things you can do in that direction.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. And nowadays, there's also no excuses because if you're looking to do personal or professional development, you can get it any way you want. Oh, I want to watch a video. Oh, I want to listen to a podcast. Oh, I want to read a book. Oh, I'd like to see a movie. Oh, I do what I bet anything you want is available out there. And so they've kind of taken away that excuse. Oh, I don't have time. I don't have this. Come on, man. No, I don't think so.
yeah,
So
totally.
got to ask this question because it's just so top of mind these days. What's your take on AI? I know you are super involved in producing events with the topic. Where do you think we are? Where do you think we're going? How important is it for the business person of today, the entrepreneur of today, to pay attention to AI and come up to speed?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. We've in our AI for Business Summit, we've had conducted over 200 interviews on AI, and we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and most of it's good. And it's here's what I've seen is that it's changing so fast that people really what happened 3 months ago might be the same in one area but way different in another area, and then 6 months the landscapes change again, and then 9 months the landscapes change again, and then a year the landscape change again. And so it's really it's a fast changing industry right now. And I've heard a lot of people say, this is interesting. I've heard a lot of people say, listen, if you don't get caught up on AI, you're going to be you're going to be behind, they're going to be ultimately in the future. There's going to be people who use AI and people that don't. And I believe in that. I think people will use AI or they don't, and the people who do use it are going to crush it, and people who don't won't. But I don't think that time is here yet. And here's why: it's because everything's changing so fast that if you jumped in the game today, you'd be caught up with where things are, and you can just ride that wave because things are going to be different in January, right, or whatever, September even. So I do think that yes, eventually you're going to need to use AI because a lot of people, mostly your competitors, are using it now, and if you don't learn to use it and start mastering it, you'll be far behind. Now, with that being said, there's lots of problems with it. Like you get into ChatGPT and it doesn't quite do what you do, and even that's improved. The ChatGPT 4.0, I guess it is, or ChatGPT Omni, and that is better. I've seen that do a lot better copy. AI agents are coming out. I'm starting to use that now in my business. I love the idea of that, but who knows where that's going to go? And will people accept a conversation from AI agents? I don't know. We're going to try it out and we'll find out. So how far will it go? I think in the distant future, or maybe the near future, it's going to definitely be integrated into society in a way where we won't be able to tell. But right now, things are still the Wild West. It's really the Wild West. And so if you haven't jumped in yet, I want to say it's too late, but it's not too late. Jump in and get this done, and you can catch up, and you'll be amazed by the stuff, and eventually you'll just be like, okay, I got to get this done. Now, here's something that's interesting, is a lot of people ask me, where do you start with AI? And the answer is, you start in the areas where you feel like it's going to save you the most time, right? Where is it going to save you the most time? How do I use AI so I can do a 4-hour project in 45 minutes? Right? That's where you want to use AI. And so you want to ask yourself that question. Here's where you don't want to use AI yet, right? You don't want to use it where, well, I'm going to create 100 social media posts. It's like, well, have you ever created social media posts? Well, no, not really. I'm not really using social media in my business. It's like, well, don't do that then, even though it's cool and fast, right? Don't implement an AI strategy in an area that you're not crushing it in yet because you don't even know if social media is going to work for your business, right? So use it in the areas that you're currently using it, make yourself streamline now and currently what you do effectively, and then step out into those other areas where you see it crushing it, you see other people doing well, but it's a new strategy for you and you're not sure if it's going to work in your field.
I also think that it's very interesting, Bob, how certain things are still the norm. AI just enhances. For example, search engine optimization.
Yep.
SEO is going to be changed by AI in a big way. But what are the search engines still saying? They're still saying content is king. So content is king. Well, content has been king for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years. Content is still king, right? But you got to create, now maybe you can create the content quicker, better, faster, but it's still content is king. Where it becomes different though is how's anybody getting your content, right? Because here's an interesting phenomenon. If I go on to generative AI or Google SGE or what's now being called Google AI overviews, if I go in there and I start interacting with the tool and I'm getting all my questions answered by one tool, and then at the end of that, that tool recommends a particular place for me to go get what I need, the chances of me going to look somewhere else for it are almost zero.
Right.
So suddenly the concept of ranking number one, number two, number three, number four doesn't really matter. It today it still does, but in the very near term, it'll become much more about, okay, is your comprehensive body of knowledge that you're putting out there that is being accessed by AI visible in such a way that it provides value to the people? Because if it does, you're going to rank better than they are because they're going to recommend you. So I think it's very interesting how these things are shaking out. And to your point, I'd never actually thought about it the way you expressed it, which I really appreciate, by the way. You're right. Somebody jumping in can come up to speed so fast that
Mhm.
within a short amount of time, they're just up to speed as the next guy was, and whether they started in November of 22 or not.
And maybe more up to speed because they don't have to unlearn what they learned last year. So,
I know, right? For
yeah.
sure, man. That's the only thing. It's like being like yourself, a lifelong learner. I have to definitely have these conversations with myself saying, okay, look, I know you'd rather not learn another thing. Not available as an answer. So sorry. I don't care what you want to say. That answer is not available at the moment. So where do you think the future is for AI? What do you think? What would you project it up if you forecast like even just a year out? What do you think it looks like?
Oh boy.
Easy question, right?
Yeah, here's what I think it looks like. I think it looks like the first shift that's going to happen is that corporations are going to embrace it and lay off people. And so, number one. So we'll have this, I think we're going to start to see huge layoffs, more in 25, more in 26, more in 27, more in 28. And that's going to flood the market with people who are not AI people, are not employees any longer, right? And many of those are going to try and become entrepreneurs. So I think what it's going to do is it's going to grow the small business, quote unquote, entrepreneur, maybe internet marketing space. I think there's going to be a flood of people coming into the market that are former employees that are looking to change the way they live. Now, some of them will need to become AI experts, right, from a corporate standpoint, while others will become an entrepreneur where they need to become AI experts from an entrepreneur standpoint, which is different. And so I think that's where it's going to go. I think we're going to see layoffs, and I think people are going to have to decide whether they're going to be an entrepreneur or try and be an AI employee. And if they're going to be an AI employee, then they'll follow that path and they'll get certified and they'll do what they need to do in that aspect. But they'll be fighting over jobs. In either case, it's going to be it'll be interesting from that perspective. I've seen the robots coming out. I think you're going to see more robots. I think driving through is going to be completely automated at some point, where even flipping the burgers is going to be automated, right? Answering phones. I think the Philippines, which has the largest call center in the country, in India, I think are really going to suffer because I think a lot of those AI agents are going to take over all those positions. So I think that's going to happen, and And I think people who are entrepreneurs and entrepreneur minded are going to be the ones to benefit from it. And I think there's going to be a lot of these podcasts like what we're doing now. I think it'll be in 10x. I think ultimately it's going to 10x or more because there'll be lots of podcasts, there'll be lots of summits, there'll be exchange of information, and I think eventually we'll just become a society that exchanges information. I buy your program, you buy my program. We're all doing kind of the same thing back and forth, and because we're all living at home, and working from our computers. And eventually, I think the government's going to have to deal with the fact that there are lots of unemployed people out there, and we're ultimately going to have to deal with maybe a society where there is some kind of funding for those people, something that here's a minimum income that everybody gets in order to live your life, kind of like Sweden and some of these other countries call. And I know people don't like the idea of socialism. I don't either. I don't like the word. But if we don't do that, then we have something worse than that, which is homelessness. And I definitely don't want that. And so that's where I kind of see it going. And I don't want to get political or anything, but if we don't handle that, if we're not thinking about that, then we're going to wind up with that dilemma that we have to figure out eventually. So I think that's kind of where I see the whole AI thing going on a kind of a big picture.
Yeah, I'm with you. I totally agree. Jobs are going to be replaced, but then people who know AI are going to be the people replacing the jobs. So
Right.
uh, all of
Either
that also
corporate, yeah, either corporate or entrepreneurship. Yeah.
100%. I never thought about the idea about leading to more entrepreneurs, but that makes total sense.
Right.
Sometimes in depressions, you have more entrepreneurs because people got to figure out what to do to survive. So it's
Right.
not as though there's not money out there. It's just that it's in different places and you got to figure out where to go to find it. Here's my favorite question. If you could click on a button, click and hop back 20 years and have a conversation with the younger Bob, not the young Bob, still young now, but the younger Bob of 20 years ago, and offer some thoughts, some counsel, some guidance, what would you want to say? And oh, by the way, oh, everything working out like it's supposed to, that does not count as an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, first thing I would say is jump into the online space, get into this online space and learn it and master it. And I know 20 years ago, being online, putting up a website, and an online course and all that stuff, it was difficult. It was not easy like it is now. Today, it's like you can do it in a couple hours. Now, back then, it was like you had to learn WordPress, you had to have wish lists and all these other membership site things and these plugins and it sometimes didn't work right and whatever. And so it's amazing that people like Jeff Walker and Frank Kern and people like that ever got off the ground because it was difficult, right? And I know because I tried it and it was not easy. And so the first thing I would say is master that. And the second thing I would say is master creating events, especially summits. And that's why Laptop Lifestyle focuses on teaching people how to create live events through the form of summits or virtual conferences that give you the ability to bring in large groups of people because those become your community, which you need because have you ever created a course and then nobody's bought it? Lots of people do that. They create the course first thinking, hey, everybody's going to want this, but they never really have an idea of how to get traffic. They think, people are going to come in through SEO, but they don't even know SEO and have an SEO plan. And so where do people come from? Well, if you start with your summits, you can make money from the summits and then have the summit and surveys from the summit determine what your back-end program is, and you can really build a business that way. So I would say, listen, master summits, get these down, get them online as soon as possible because that's going to be a massive income stream for you. And even now, I'm one of the reasons why I teach people that is because I did buy Frank Kern's program, I did buy Jeff Walker's program, I did buy these programs online that were teaching you a product launch formula and all these other things, but they didn't show you how to get customers for it. How do you get people to buy it? This is how you do a product launch, but who am I launching to, right? It's like nobody shows up unless I have a way to make them show up. And so I became very passionate about building summits because I knew through experience, once I built a summit, I knew how to get people to in front of me so I can make the offer and say, listen, here's the product I got it. Do you want it or not? And summits are a wonderful way to really kickstart your business and make money. And there are other ways. It's not the only way, but it's the way I learned. And if I went 20 years back, I would say do that. And I guarantee I'd be 10x where I am right now.
Yeah. It would be so great to have that hindsight possibility, wouldn't it, my man? All right,
Or
brother.
just maybe just another 30 years on top of what I got now. Either way.
Either way. So as we're kind of wrapping things up, just tell us if you could recommend 3 resources for entrepreneurs, 3 books, 3 podcasts, 3 movies, 3 whatever that would help, that have helped you and that you've seen help others. What would those 3 resources be?
Okay, well, okay, so I'm going to think about this. I know what comes to mind immediately, and so I'll say those. The first book I ever read, well, that really stuck with me. Let's put it that way. Was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I love that book. As we've talked about Robert Kiyosaki before. I know I've done a lot of work around him, but I've done that work because I was inspired by this book first, and it really taught me the mindset between entrepreneurs and employees. And I was an employee at the time. So if you're an employee, you're going to have a mindset shift that needs to occur because you're used to getting that paycheck. You're used to being on the nipple, right? And you need to wean yourself off because there is no nipple when you are entrepreneur, meaning that you're not going to get a paycheck from anybody. If you don't work, you don't get paid. So you need to think differently about how money comes in, and that was such a big deal for me. And I didn't know how much I needed to know. I knew I needed to do that, and I did that. So that would be number one. Number two would be always be engaged. I mean, make this a life philosophy. Be engaged in personal development. Personal development, whether it's a book on business, what you're reading, maybe Russell Brunson's book, Webinar Secrets or whatever it was, Internet Marketing, Internet Secrets. I can't remember the name of the book. Or whether it's going to a personal development class like the Landmark Forum or PSI seminars or some of these other personal development programs. They are phenomenal, and they will take you through exercises where you get to look at your mindset around different things, from your a victim mindset, a growth mindset, a responsible mindset. You can look at how you deal with relationships, how you deal with integrity in your word. These are all very important philosophies for dealing with business. So having personal development in your life will keep you engaged in that process because it's a lifelong lifestyle, being engaged in personal development.
Mhm.
And the third thing is that if you're online building a course, building a program, doing what we're originally and I are doing, you probably are going to be a coach. And a coach without a coach is what we call a hypocrite. and, and right? Am I right or am I right? So you probably definitely will benefit from having a coach. And so get in the idea of having a coach and also being a coach, right? So you don't plan on being a coach unless you plan on having a coach. And once you have a coach, know that you want to have a coach that's several steps ahead of you, has done what you want to do already, right? And people say, I've heard this a lot. You don't have to be a coach. You don't have to have done something, in order to coach people. And I don't agree with that necessarily, right? I don't like that phrase because listen, you're going to coach me to do this process that you have never done before. What are you going to coach me to get out of bed or whatever? It's like, I'd rather have a coach coaching me through a process that has been proven and I know works. Though that to me, that's where real coaching can occur. And that's, I think, what I would recommend that you look for is find a coach who's coaching you through a proven process that you will get a specific result from, not that will make you feel happy or that will make you feel better or whatever, right? Like, if you have a coach that's going to coach you into losing weight, but they've never done keto and you're on the keto program, then you probably want to find a keto coach who has done it and is specialized in that, for example, right?
Yeah.
So those would be my 3 things. Whatever I just said,
Perfect. No, that's
There you
perfect. That's exactly what we were looking for. Final words as you're looking out there, entrepreneurs that are out there, what nugget would you like to leave all of these budding entrepreneurs or even seasoned entrepreneurs with as we wrap this up today?
Your mindset will be the biggest obstacle or accelerator in your business career, right? So either you're going to get stuck or you're going to excel, and either of those conditions will be dependent on your mindset. And so that's why I say personal development. Be involved in personal development. That means you're always involved in shifting your mindset toward where you need to be to continue to move forward. So if you're stuck, you have a mindset issue. If you're moving forward, you have a mindset issue. Well, not an issue, but it's because your mindset. So again, be involved in personal development because your mindset is your biggest asset. And that goes back to, like, if you're in your 20s listening to this, you want to know that, hey, you can be a superstar online, crushing it, making a couple $1,000,000 if you have the right mindset. Right. And I realized that at a point when I realized that, hey, the only difference between me and Bill Gates, for example, was that Bill Gates thought different than me, which means he took different actions. And so your mindset will create your actions. So shift your mindset.
Awesome. Bob Dietrich, thank you so very much for your time, your wisdom, your insights. Much to ponder here, everybody. And of course, take a look down below. Websites are there as always. And we'll catch you next time, Bob. Thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.